plays you might miss last night. Oh, Giannis driving to the basket and then does that to Luka Doncic.
Man, watching Giannis on a night-to-night basis is such a joy.
He's the most dangerous player in the open court. You never think he's going to finish like this, but man, some type of way he can dunk on you.
Sixers
all
Rockets,
different types of angles.
James Harden leading the break. Joel Embiid hustles back, throws Harden's layup off the backboard. Sixers with a big win last night.
Dominating win over Houston despite James Harden heroics. This is something Houston might have to get used to in this time with no Capella, still no Paul. Harden's great and they get whooped.
Oh yeah, they were going at it last night. This was a fun game to watch. Houston didn't play well, but they got under Harden's skin.
Man, Embiid's going to have a lot of enemies in this league. Oh no.
Bulls Cavs, Chris Dunn throws a perfect alley-oop to Zach LaVine.
I don't know about the city of Chicago, but for a national show, we have the Bulls, a sorry team, on our highlight reel on a regular basis. I don't know why. It's not as if we have some connection there.
They got some high flyers on the team. Here's the thing for the Cavs. We have now passed MLK Day, which is a big day on the NBA calendar. They are still in single-digit wins. Still, Cleveland. If they end up designing...
I don't think you had the highlights on there so you can flame Cleveland.
Well, it's just what came to mind. You flamed the Bulls and our production staff were on there. Oh, no.
Finally, worst you'll ever see out of Steph Curry. Going for the dunk, that's not good. Then he gets him the ball back and airball. That's not good either.
So, listen, good thing he didn't get hurt. Since he didn't get hurt, we can laugh about it. Steph and Clay have...
No, if he had gotten hurt, I would still be laughing.
Okay, all right, fine. Steph and Clay have an ongoing competition about dunks in the season. Clay's at 11, Steph is at 1, so Steph was trying to get to 2 there. He said after the game he had something special cooked up. Instead, he falls down.
Yeah, that's what happens if you buy basketball shoes at the grocery store. Those Under Armour, to me, they still have a long way to go as far as technology before they get on my feet.
All right, moving on to Carson Wentz. So a report came out yesterday calling Phillies franchise quarterback, quote, selfish and egotistical, and went on to say, quote, Carson Wentz's biggest enemy is Carson Wentz. This from anonymous players interviewed on the Eagles. Well, let's just say this made some non-anonymous players on the Eagles upset. Lane Johnson came to his quarterback's defense, tweeting, whoever wrote that article needs to check their sources, hashtag fake news. Carson has been and is our leader and our quarterback. Y'all know where to find me if you have any issues. Hashtag fly, Eagles fly. Fletcher Cox chimed in. Reading through this Carson Wentz thing, and as a leader on this team, none of that's true. Carson's a great teammate and great player. We're all behind him 100%. He's our guy, and we'll come back and prove the world wrong. If you got a problem, feel free to @ me. I will respond. All right, Nick, what do you make of all this?
All right, so I don't believe the author made this up. Just said I talked to 6 Eagles players and they didn't. I do think these are people on the team, people close to the team saying these things. Now, what should we take these things to mean? I think it also should be noted, Josina Anderson, who is as reputable a reporter as there is, a couple months ago, reported some of the same frustrations with Carson Wentz before Nick Foles got his second act with the team about it being a Zach Ertz-centric offense, about him not going through the progressions as far as looking at who's open, instead looking to either run the ball on the RPOs himself or to Zach Ertz rather than just go with the flow of the offense. So we've had multiple reports now with some Eagles being frustrated. This doesn't surprise me in the least. Like, if you are a pass catcher on the Eagles, not named Zach Ertz, of course you're frustrated. Zach Ertz is a good player, but he's not good enough to be the most targeted tight end in NFL history. And it should be noted, the guy whose record he broke for catches by a tight end in NFL history, we heard some of this with Witten and Romo. If you remember that relationship where there were receivers on the Cowboys, maybe a little jealous is one way to put it, about that relationship and whether or not he was favored as far as pass catching. C talks all the time. Receivers care about 2 things above all else: their money and their stats. And the stats help you get the money. And so, do I believe that there could be players on the Eagles that, A, think the team plays better with Nick Foles? Absolutely. I think there are a lot of people, even if they can't explain it, that think the team plays better with Nick Foles. And B, are frustrated that they run one offense that they won and won a Super Bowl, the same offense they ran at the end of the year, and seemingly a different Zach Ertz-centric offense while Carson Wentz is out there. I buy all of that. Now, the selfish, egotistical part, I've never heard that before. And it seems like there are a lot of teammates publicly saying that isn't who he is. So maybe there's certain guys that don't like Carson Wentz as a guy, but that doesn't seem to be the knock on him. But the football knock, I think, is fair and real, and I believe it.
Well, from a football standpoint, you have a number of quotes in there, and I think it's important that the audience knows that when you have people like Fletcher Cox, when you have people like Lane Johnson, those are interior, those are kind of the heart and soul. The reason why they were good last year was because their big people were better. Their offense and defensive line, even though they had the injuries. But as far as understanding football, those guys understand the least amount of football that's on the field. Lane Johnson, he doesn't know who's supposed to get the ball. When they tell him a pass protection, they tell him the pass protection, and they tell him the snap count. The rest of it, he not listening to. If I go, let's go double right, scat right, 585, X dig. All he cares about is the number that tells him the protection, and that's the 585 that tells him the quarterback's going to be going 5 steps back. So who's supposed to get the ball and everything, he don't know. Fletcher Cox is a defensive tackle. He has no clue of what the offense is doing. Now, they've been utilizing their running backs by committee. So you know it's not one of the running backs because none of them have a big enough role to be able to say something like this. To me, I do believe that there are wide receivers on the team that have said comments that this reporter has also added his own personal opinion on it, that he could be able to write stories or things could be released like this. But if you think throughout my career there weren't other wide receivers jealous, or there weren't other wide receivers that said, man, if I could be targeted 14 times like Chris, I would be different. My career would be different. I would be a lot better. So for me, in something like this, I've been following it long enough to think one of the wide receivers did give him some comments. And it's hard for people, it's hard to impossible when someone shows up on the job and your performance goes up, for them not to think that between the correlation between their performance and that person not being better, that's all they can interpret. And there's no NFL offenses that are the same when you put the backup in compared, because no one sees football the same. I don't care. If Drew Brees was the backup for New England and they had the same game plan, the ball would not come out to the same people because it's impossible for two people to see football the same way. Every coach at the end of the week, you know what he asks the starting quarterback? How comfortable are you with this? What else do you like? What do you feel? Because guys they feel more comfortable throwing to certain parts of the field. Yes, and there's guys that feel more comfortable throwing to certain receivers.
Yeah.
Just to protect the quarterbacks a little bit from the Philly thing, and then I'm going to stop. There ain't a whole bunch of separation. So when you talk about throwing the ball to Zach Ertz, he's your best wide receiver. He gets the most separation. He wins more than the other receivers. Alshon is no separation. He's a 50-50 guy. All right, Nelson Aguilar's inconsistent his first several years in the league. Who else do you have there? So when the receivers are complaining, I would just be careful, because there's not a whole bunch of separation I see the wide receivers getting.
Is it a legitimate knock on a quarterback to not go through his progressions for him to feel a certain level of comfort with one specific receiver?
It's a legitimate knock if the offense is not reaching its full potential. It's a legitimate knock if you could be being more effective, and that's to C's point, which is when they got in real time, we usually don't get this in sports, the real-time experiment, which is let's change one variable. The variable being quarterback. Oh, all of a sudden, look, the offense is wide open. The offense opens up. The other part,
I wouldn't say as far as one offense is wide open when Carson Wentz is not in there to Nick Foles.
I don't think that was the case in the 2017 season. In the 2018 season, to my eyes, the offense did seem to open up greatly in the final month of the season once Nick Foles went in there. Now, we can talk about the other things that weren't as one-to-one as far as quarterback change. Offensive line got better. Guys got healthier. More desperation. They really could wear the underdog roles, whatever it is. But I understand why guys would think that what changed was the quarterback. Now I'm getting my numbers. Now I'm getting my targets. The other part of this that I thought was interesting was that you had DeFilippo leave, you had the offensive coordinator leave, and Frank Reich leave, and all of a sudden they said, now Carson Wentz can run over the room. That he had the ability, according to this report, to, with their new offensive coordinator, grow, to kind of impose his will more so than he had last year. And that could be a problem for any young quarterback, for anyone that hasn't seen as much football as Frank Reich in his 30-plus years, John DeFilippo in his 20-plus years, and whether or not that hurt their offense somewhat. The silver lining for the Eagles is, see, they've been looking for, with Wentz, a reason to say, man, people are doubting us. And now all of a sudden, if they want to be able to rally on, man, guys think you're a bad guy. Guys think that we're better with Nick Foles, who's going to be on a different team next year. Right. Maybe that can be the rallying point for next season.
I just believe in Carson Wentz. I believe he is the answer. I know each quarterback has their personality, but from everything that I have felt coming out of Philadelphia, the players I talked to, that they would really, there's no way that they believe this story. And I can understand people thinking, oh, Nick Foles a better quarterback. But there's no way that I'm going forward as Nick Foles as my quarterback. I'm putting Carson Wentz in there, and regardless of any rumors, regardless of those other receivers and what they're saying. Because you can believe there's a disgruntled wide receiver on every team.
Sure.
If you put a microphone in every receivers around the NFL, the backups, they would be telling you, and we'd be getting stories a lot like this.
All right, let's take a break. Coming up, is the NFL about to make major changes following the no call in New Orleans? CeCe says nope.
Nope.
That is next on First Things First. We're going to do this segment anyway.
We don't need about it. Oh, we don't need about this. It's a priority to us.